Good morning. I'm Jennifer Barrera, and on the behalf of the Rhode Island Coalition to End Homelessness, I'd like to welcome you this morning. The Coalition is a statewide policy, systems, and advocacy organization working collectively with partners such as the partners that are here today. We have representative from House of Hope, Laura Jaworski. Eileen is here from Amos House. We also have some representatives from the City of Providence Housing Authority and from the Pawtucket Housing Authority. So welcome, everybody. Thank you to Lieutenant Governor Matos, Governor McKee, and Secretary Pryor. The resources we're going to hear about today are life-saving resources and your shared commitment to that no Rhode Islander should face freezing to death outdoors because of a lack of a safe, warm bed to sleep in is really critical at this point. I'd like to say an even bigger thank you to those who are serving on the front lines, our street outreach workers, our case managers, shelter staff, and everyone who is working tirelessly to help those in need. Last night, 1,200 of our neighbors slept in a shelter bed or slept outside. And while the weather today is quite mild, we all have experienced the very cold weather, and we know that there's more cold weather to come. Homelessness is caused by a lack of affordable housing and low wages. Quite simply, the supply of housing is not meeting the demand. Every winter, we face the same challenge. We struggle when the cold weather comes to Rhode Island to make sure that our neighbors experiencing homelessness have a place to go, a safe place to go. There are not enough beds to serve everyone in need, and unfortunately, this year and last year have been made worse by the pandemic and the associated recession. The resources announced today will help us work towards addressing the crisis, but we are by no means done. We cannot take our foot off the gas pedal. Even with the resources announced today, there will still be Rhode Islanders experiencing homelessness, and we still have long-range plans that we need to accomplish to develop more affordable housing resources. We also need to work to raise income to a living wage and bring systemic change to our homeless system. In Rhode Island, there is no right to shelter. If the shelters are full, Rhode Islanders are turned away. So just imagine this, that yourself or your family or your children have nowhere to sleep. You call a critical resource line or encounter a street outreach worker, and there is no bed for them to refer you to. You get placed on a list when a bed comes available. And for many people who are placed on the list, that bed never comes available. So that's why these resources are critical, and that's why our continued work to develop more resources is important to all of the folks experiencing homelessness. This can't continue. The General Assembly should enact a right to shelter legislation. Our neighbors in Massachusetts is a right to shelter state, which means anyone who presents for shelter is able to get shelter that same evening. We must continue to proactively address this crisis, not waiting until the temperature gets cold. We are, like I said, we're grateful for these resources, but we've had very cold temperatures before these resources have come online. So we need to continue to work to anticipate the needs in Rhode Island and not be reacting after the fact. So in conclusion, we are so grateful to the governor and the lieutenant governor and Secretary Pryor and all of the folks working in their offices for their partnership. And we are looking forward to continued partnership as we continue to add resources and work to build more affordable housing for our neighbors in need. We can and we must end homelessness. And without further ado, Governor Dan McKee. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody, and then it's great to be back here, and certainly matching up advocacy and action are the key here, right? Is that we can talk about it, but if we don't do things, then what are we talking about? So I'm glad to be here, joined here by Lieutenant Governor, Secretary Pryor, staff from the Office of Housing and Community Development, but I'm especially glad to be here with homelessness service providers and partners who have stepped up and have been working around the clock with my administration to expand emergency shelter capacity. We did a whole hands-on deck right around a little before Thanksgiving. Liz Tanner's here, our director of DBR, and we kind of pulled her and pulled some other people together, matched them up with Stefan, and got out to a really active daily effort to address the issues that we're dealing with, the immediate issues. And I've said, and I do agree with Jen, that the that we're always, seems as though I'm always reading, prior to being governor, scrambling right around this time of the year. And I certainly made a commitment, just like yesterday made a commitment to increase our vaccine capacity on a weekly basis back up to 100,000. Well, I think that's the same scenario here. We've got to overbuild, develop to get ready for the peak time frame. That peak time frame when, and then we can get down to the business that we all want to get down to, which is providing permanent housing strategies that can help everybody that lives in Rhode Island. So I'm happy to be here with the Rhode Island Coalition to End Homelessness. Jen and Caitlin, I have to thank you not only for hosting us today, but for your persistence and dedications to serving our fellow Rhode Islanders. We're here to recognize the efforts of a number of providers and thank them for their coordination and collaboration with my staff, with my administration, to quickly expand winter shelter for years, for years, and thank them for their years of tireless work. It does not get, it's not going unnoticed, and I like to lift up your contributions to make Rhode Island a better place and join you in that effort. I also want to recognize Neil Steinberg from the Rhode Island Foundation, who has played a role in today's announcements. Whenever we need the foundation to help to get over the finish line, you're there for us, Neil, and yesterday was no exception, talking to you about other short and long-term strategies relative to this issues of housing. So thank you to you and the foundation. Working to address the housing crisis is not a new priority for me or the Lieutenant Governor. Whether it was the first budget I submitted to the General Assembly, my administration's down payment proposal, or how quickly we acted to fix the problems with the Rent Relief Rhode Island program that we inherited. And also as a mayor, I think that I was the first community in the state of Rhode Island to actually have a state-approved affordable housing plan. And while I was mayor, we followed through on that plan. And we actually exceeded that by the time I left office. Addressing housing instability and affordability needs to be and is at the core of our efforts, of the people that work with me in my office. Because we all know if a child doesn't have a safe place or stable place to sleep at night, how can we expect that that student to actually perform well in school? If one of our fellow Rhode Islanders spends their day worried about where they're going to sleep at night, how can we expect them to excel or be employed in a way that is really helping their family and helping our community establish an economy in the state of Rhode Island that can support all families that live in the state of Rhode Island? And how can we expect to increase our population as a state and retain our fair share of talented and skilled college graduates if they can't afford to live here? I think at this moment in time, when we're talking about the staffing issues, as we did yesterday at the hospitals, but it runs from bus drivers, to hospitality, to manufacturing, everywhere in between. Today we're focused on the hospital issues, but housing makes a difference in terms of retaining and making sure we're keeping the very best people living in our state and developing the economy that we all want to have as we want to thrive as families in our communities. But this isn't a problem that will just be solved with a checkbook or a press release. This problem can only be solved by doing the work, and the work is hard. And as I said before, Sabina and I are ready and willing to work with anyone who's willing to do the work. The people here today have been doing the work and continue to do the work, and I thank you for that. In early November, we announced $5 million in funding to our emergency shelter providers to increase the number of beds for this current winter season. I want to thank the Secretary prior, because we didn't really have access to the federal dollars at that point in time, so I asked him to go patchwork as much money as we could put from any direction that we could. That $5 million exists today because of the work that Stefan did and his staff by trying to find areas that we could pull from. So we announced that that funding would cover 275 beds. And at this point, I'm really pleased and happy to say that we are actually tracking a total of 298 beds, more than we had projected. On top of the $5 million investment, my administration has been working with all hands on deck, my office, the Office of Housing and Community Development, Commerce, Department of Health Department, Business Regulations, I've said, and even the National Guard alongside providers and communities to ramp up shelter capacity to serve even more Rhode Islanders. Today's announcement is the definition of a true team effort. When you start talking about engaging a few weeks before Thanksgiving and be here a few weeks before Christmas, that's an incredible amount of work, and it didn't just happen by wishing and hoping and praying. Today I'm pleased to announce the addition of up to 130 emergency shelter beds for Rhode Islanders experiencing homelessness and 20 beds for COVID-positive Rhode Islanders, and I expect to make even more expansion announcements over the coming weeks. Let me share a few more details. Next week, Amos House will open a non-congregate shelter program in Pawtucket at the Memorial Hospital. We anticipate families will be able to move and starting in next week, and it'll be up to 80 beds. I want to thank everybody involved in that, but in particular Mayor Grebian, who is a champion for this cause. And the City of Pawtucket, Lockwood Development, and Veteran Services USA. I want to thank the Mayor, Lockwood, and Eileen Hayes, and her entire team at the Amos House for making this happen in such a short time frame. Open Doors in Providence is committed to expanding their current operations to add 15 beds, which has now up and running as of yesterday. I see Nick Horton here today and from Open Doors, and thank you, Nick. House of Hope will open up 25 hotel beds in East Providence in the next week. I thank you, Laura, and the House of Hope for being here today, and thank you for your work. Your creative problem solving and leadership in this space is a huge asset to the state. Not to mention your willingness to step up and expand hotel bed capacity in East Providence. So thank you for all you've done and continue to do. Community Care Alliance has agreed to add up to 10 hotel vouchers to their existing contract in Woonsocket, starting later this week. So thank you to CCA. In addition to providing emergency shelter beds at various service providers throughout the state, I'm also announcing that starting today, we're opening a quarantine and isolation facility in Providence. I want to thank the Episcopal Diocese and the West Bay Community Action, who are both here this morning for their work in this facility. The Q&I facility will be at the Hallworth House in Providence and will serve housing insecure Rhode Islanders who test positive for COVID and need to quarantine to isolate. The facility can accommodate individuals as well as families. And I want to thank Mayor Elorza for his support on this project. This Q&I facility also serves another important purpose. With this facility up and running, we are enabling homelessness service providers to restore capacity they lost due to the social distancing requirements. Most notably, Crossroads anticipates that it will be able to add even more capacity at locations they provide services to for housing insecure individuals. And I want to thank Karen Santilli, Michelle Wilcox, and the entire Crossroads team for all that you've done to serve our most vulnerable throughout the pandemic. That's a mouthful, but that's a lot of work. And there's a number of people that we are going to continue to work with, and most of these organizations I have visited personally more than once, as Lieutenant Governor and now as Governor. And I can't extend my thanks to each and every one of you in a way that is appropriate, other than to say thank you for the people, to the people of the state of Rhode Island, in particular those families and individuals that rely on our providers and the help that they provide each and every day to the people that live in the state of Rhode Island. So thank you so much for having me today.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor McKee, for your hard work and everything that you have been doing in this since you became governor to address the challenges that we have in our state when it comes with the homelessness problem that we're facing. I would like to thank and acknowledge Senator Coleman that is here. She represents this area of Pawtucket and also has been a very active member of the General Assembly that have been working really hard on addressing the challenges of homelessness and housing in general. So thank you, Senator, for all your hard work. As Governor McKee and I announced back in November, at that time we declared a commitment for $5 million to provide additional shelter beds. And this was as a temporary housing for our own house residents. And at that time we said there will be more. And today, again, we're here to say there is more and there will be more. As I stand here next to Governor McKee and Secretary Pryor to announce that there is more on the way already and there will be more options available, I wanted to remind you that your government is hard at work and committed to providing housing for those unhoused residents in our state, and continue to find long-lasting solutions, not a patch solution every year. That's the commitment that the governor has and that I have, and we're working to make sure that we find those long-term solutions to this problem. Because everyone deserves to have a safe place that they call home. The McKee Matos administration, along with the partner agencies, many of them who are here present, we have been working really hard every day to provide those safe housings for those that are in need and are out there in the community. This cannot be done alone, and this cannot be done with just a press conference, as Governor McKee said. It takes work, hard work, and the willingness to go into the building of the State House and do the hard work of working with your colleagues and everybody else in government to make sure that it gets done. And it has to be done this way because there's people out there that are counting on us. There are people out there that are gonna be dying if they don't have a place to sleep. And it doesn't happen just with a press conference, it's happened with hard work. And I wanna thank Governor McKee and Secretary Pryor for all the hard work that you have been doing, and your team, the Commerce team, Hannah and the rest of the Commerce team. Thank you so much. We have to find real solutions that are gonna be lasting. In the coming weeks, we're gonna have more announcement of other things that are gonna be coming to address those challenges. I wanna make sure to remind everyone that as your Lieutenant Governor, I have made affordable and accessible housing a top priority. And my team has been working really hard every day to make that a reality. I want to remind everyone also that we can do everything we can to address the homelessness, but if we're not doing enough to prevent homelessness, and it's part of the conversation that we have been having with the Lunch and Learns, we're gonna be back here every single time. We have to make sure that we speak to the federal government to address the challenge with the definition of homelessness, to make sure that we're able to free up resources to address the problems before we have individuals living on the street. I'm looking forward to continue this hard work, and looking forward to working in collaboration with everyone here. And also, I want to just highlight and thank the Rhode Island Foundation, Neil, and the leadership that you're taking on addressing these challenges. And being there whenever we call you and says, Neil, we're running into this challenge, this problem, because as you know, in government, things don't work. There are some rules and regulations that we have to follow, and sometimes there are some emergency, and you're always being available to help. So I want to say thank you. With that, I just want to turn it over to Secretary Pryor, who's going to give us more details about this announcement. And I want to say, Secretary, thank you again for all your hard work and everything that you have been doing with your team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor. And Lieutenant Governor Matos, thank you so much for recognizing that there are deep and structural issues in Rhode Island, as there are around the country, around the production of affordable and accessible housing, and for conducting these conversations, a series of them with stakeholders, to make sure that we are surfacing the policies that will get us there, and for taking actions, Lieutenant Governor, that are getting us there. Governor McKee, thank you for ensuring that this is a major priority for our administration, and for guiding us to find the resources wherever we need to in order to advance the cause, and in order to ensure that individuals who are currently homeless are not any longer. And in a very short period of time, thank you for enabling us to mobilize and to make all of this possible. There was another announcement yesterday, of course, regarding masking and vaxxing. And I want to make this overall comment about the things we're discussing this week. Rhode Island is in the midst of a strong economic recovery. And the policies that the governor and lieutenant governor and health director put in place yesterday, I believe, will help secure that recovery, because we will ensure that Rhode Islanders remain safe, and that consumers can confidently shop, and investors can continue to make their funding commitments and enable development. Those things are enormously important to the economic recovery. Two other things. One is they're important in that the development that occurs will include housing and will incorporate more affordable housing, which is part of that structural solution. That's the first point. And the second point I want to make about our economic recovery is that as across the country, in Rhode Island, it is an uneven recovery. And there are many Rhode Islanders who continue to suffer. There are small businesses that continue to struggle, and there are individuals who are having an enormously hard time. There should be no Rhode Islanders who are without a roof. It should not be the case, and the COVID crisis has exacerbated the conditions that have existed for a long time in Rhode Island, and that lead to homelessness. So we're very pleased to be at the point where we can do more, and we must stay at it. In these tough times, and in what will be perceived as the good times that follow, we must stay at it to ensure that we prevent and eliminate homelessness. There's been an incredible effort here under Governor McKee to get this job done. You've heard the facts. I want to repeat the main ones, because we should all feel like we're making progress and yet stay at it. And those figures are, we're adding up to 130 beds for Rhode Islanders experiencing homelessness, and 20 more beds for COVID-positive individuals who are currently homeless, for that Q&I facility that the governor has explained very well. To be clear, because we're opening up this Q&I facility, there will be still more beds that open up in the pre-existing homeless centers. So dozens more beds will become available beyond the 150 that I just referenced for individuals who are currently homeless. So this is a situation that will continue to get better in terms of the number of beds that are available to individuals who are struggling in this way. Even that is not enough, and as the governor and lieutenant governor have stated, we will remain focused on more solutions. This has been a terrific effort, and I want to offer some more recognition and then come back to this point about addressing the structural issues around housing under this governor. I want to thank the providers who are making this possible one more time, because we've seen the tirelessness, the devotion, the advocacy, and the action. So Eileen Hayes of Amos House, bless you. It's amazing what you're undertaking. Nick Horton, phenomenal work at Open Doors. Laura Jaworski at House of Hope, really remarkable. We're so very, very grateful. Also, they may not be here right now, but Karen Santilli of Crossroads, just terrific. And Jennifer, for your every single day hard work, right at it, coordinating us and moving us forward. What a remarkable effort. I do want to add some government officials to this list so that you all know. Hannah Moore, our new Assistant Secretary of Commerce, is a maestro on these housing and homelessness issues for the broad administration team and is doing an incredible job on this in many fronts. Hannah Moore, thank you. You're already living up to your new title. Mike Tondra and Mary Rose Mensa are terrific professionals at the Office of Housing and Community Development. They can't be here today, but they've been hard at it. And Kim Ahern from the governor's office, also, though not here at the moment, I believe, is doing a phenomenal job. Liz Tanner stepped up, as the governor said, and helped us identify sites. Eileen, thank you for assigning someone to work with us even over the weekends to check out Memorial Hospital. Liz and Hannah and I wanted to see it with our own eyes, that reopening a previously closed facility could be safe and functional. And with your help, Eileen, Liz and Hannah, we were able to do some site visits firsthand and make sure that it got going. These are illustrations of what this phenomenal team has been able to do. Let me conclude by talking about the structural problem of affordable housing in our state. Rhode Island has historically produced bonds that on a periodic basis enable us to build a modest amount of affordable housing in spurts, in clusters. Now, it's better than no program, but the past two governors, under the implementation of Governor McKee, have recognized that it is not enough. And the General Assembly, the Speaker and Senate President have recognized we need a steady funding stream beyond these periodic bonds that are on the ballot for the electorate to ensure we have a permanent way to support the production of affordable housing, including permanent supportive housing for people who have the highest need. We've got to stay at this. So with the most recent bond, we did an in-memory record amount of allocation under Governor McKee of $31 million for housing developments across our state that are affordable, a recent allocation in recent record time, perhaps altogether record time. We need to do more of that. We need to bulk up. So we need this down payment that, with great thanks to the Speaker and Senate President, is moving through the General Assembly now, moving through committee, which will provide capacity at the Office of Housing and Community Development and will provide yet more $29 million in more funding for these structural solutions, including $1.5 million more for homelessness and related challenges and issues among our residents. So we must continue to offer these resources and deploy them, and we're so proud that all of our constituent participants in this effort, government officials, nonprofits, all of these organizations and individuals have been able to get us to this point where we're at 150 plus beds being committed to right today. Thank you to one more person, Neil Steinberg. What he did, people have been referring to it. What Neil did is we talk all the time about all manner of problems and challenges, and Neil's always available to us. God bless him for that. We called Neil and we said, Neil, we've got a hotel that's got to come online. We've got to front load that payment. We know government can move pretty fast, but we need it instantly. And can the foundation do it? And yet again, Neil said yes and provided a bridge grant. Neil, you call it a recoverable grant. So it's a loan, but in the form that moves fastest. And thank you for doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone who participated in this, bless you for helping us get to this point. We appreciate it. And Governor, I think we're taking questions. Thank you very much.
Couple of questions. Number one, how much are you investing in this, what you're announcing today? Where's the money coming from? And final question there, I think Matt Brown, Cynthia Mendez are suggesting that this is all a response to what they've been doing, encampment outside the State House. Would you like to respond to that?
I'll answer the question about the dollars, and at the governor's discretion, whichever questions you wish me to answer. On the dollars, this investment represents $4 million additional beyond our previously announced money. The sources, Kathy, per your question, FEMA. We worked hard to ensure FEMA eligibility for some of these developments, for some of these beds. CDBG, Community Development Block Grants, which are available in some cases for these purposes, and the original conveyance tax fund, not the new increment, but the original conveyance tax fund that flows through the Housing Resources Commission. Once again, a collection of sources to get the job done at $4 million.
Well, thank you for that question. No, I say, look, we are listening to anybody who wants to talk about the issue, but I think it's a little presumptive to think that any one group got us here today. So we're listening to everybody, but again, I'm more than happy to work with the people who are willing to do the work, and that's why we're here today, because the people in this room right now are willing to do the work.
Governor, does this plan meet the scale of the problem as it exists? I mean, are we...
At the moment, as defined, it does. It's a helter-skelter approach for sure, as we're patchworking things together, and that's why I think that we need to be working on a plan so that we're not repeating this scramble every year. So that's something that we're committed to do. But at the moment, based on what we've been told, based on what the coalition has told us to, serve in terms of number of available beds, this should do that unless some changes happen. But we're always willing to address those changes
We're
happen.
sitting on a pile of ARPA money right now that could theoretically address this issue. Are any plans in place to spend more of that? We're talking $30 million as a down payment. How much more could theoretically come in from
Yeah, so I don't think that you could put a dollar number on it until you get a plan. I think that both the Rhode Island Foundation and I agree that we need a plan. We're not going to spend dollars just to spend dollars unless it's in an emergency like we're facing today. So housing issues and running the gamuts from homelessness to fair market housing and everything in between certainly should be part of the efforts that's coming through those APRA funds. We just don't know how to detail the dollar number.
Governor, while there was an encampment now, there was an encampment back on September 9th on the other side of the State House. How would you respond to criticism that you should have acted sooner? You've been hearing the calls for this, and also do you support Jennifer's idea of the right to shelter that they have in Massachusetts, that legislation?
Yeah, well, any legislation that comes in that's favorable to the conditions to help people in the state of Rhode Island, we'll take a real strong look at that if it gets to my desk. Again, I like I said, it is very presumptive for any one group to say that they're driving the issue, especially with all the hard work that's in this room. I'll just repeat. We're willing to work with anyone who's willing to do the work.
Senator Mendez has called you cruel, both here in interviews with me and on national television. Matt Brown, a number of times, has said it's the policy of Dan McKee for people to sleep on the street and freeze to death. It's a human issue. What's your human response to that kind of criticism?
Well, I think I'm not going to talk back about personal attacks during this time frame that we all know why those personal attacks are coming. But I would just say, look, everybody in this room has been committed to helping people their entire lives. That's no different with me.